Thank you very much. It's really awesome to be here. I keep seeing all these things about this Web Performance Meetup, but we live all the way in the Netherlands, in the very big city of Groningen. That's our tower. Really nice. So yeah, we flew in all this way just for you guys. So liking this turnout? No, we are actually, we are really happy to be here. But we were here for a big event yesterday. And Sergey asked us, do you want to come here? And we were like, yeah, that's awesome. We would love to. So we're here to talk to you about, our love for LoAF and INP. And how, we all know INP. It's new. How do you debug it? We'd be happy to tell you.
Feel free, by the way, to move to the middle, because there will be a bit of an interactivity as well.
Yeah.
So it might make things a bit easier.
So you might think this will be a boring talk, but actually, and this is what happens when you put more women on stage, this is a love story. And it's not just any love story, because we love the PageSpeed community. Both of us, actually. So we co-founded RUMvision together. I'm the CEO. I took the power. He's the CTO. And RUMvision is a real user.
Laughing?
RUMvision is a real user monitoring solution, kind of equal to SpeedCurve. So I appreciate that they actually would want us here. I'm also HOS fan, which open source is awesome, and big on women in tech. Erwin can introduce himself.
Yes, I can. I'm the CTO, as Karlijn said before. As a matter of fact, RUMvision is the result of my consultancy, PageSpeed consultancy work that I do. And I was missing real user monitoring data, so I started to create something for my own clients, and that then became a software as a service, RUMvision.
Yeah.
So we are two of the three owners.
And we actually do many, many talks. And actually the one you're seeing now is the first one we ever did together.
Yep.
We did it at We Love Speed in Nantes last month. And we're happy to take it here now. We will actually also be performing on Performance Now next month. So if anyone has any doubts about going there, that's the event, like Sergey said. You should go there. That's an amazing one. And we're very proud of that. But we're not just speakers and co-founders. We are actually...
I already clicked to the next slide, so...
This is an interaction delay, people.
Yeah, there we go.
We will be talking about this. We are actually married, which tends to surprise people. But like I said, this is a love story. Because we've been together for 13.5 years. We've been married for 6. Actually, fun fact, 6 years ago, we were on a honeymoon here in New York. So this has been a nice return. We have a little 3-year-old girl who's with her grandparents right now. So we actually also survived running a company together and going here. So yeah, nice. We don't just love each other, we also love speed. The web performance kind, although Erwin is really big on Formula 1 as well. You guys as well? Is this a thing?
Which team support?
Sorry?
Which team do you support?
What do you think when we're from the Netherlands?
Which one? Yeah. No, in my case, Red Bull, because of Max Verstappen, obviously. But,
yeah, we're Dutchies.
Yeah. All right.
And that is because good sucks is a very important part of this love story. And I'm not just having a very bad pun here. No, you did not misread me. Site speed user experience. And it's in your name, guys. How have you never made this pun before? Because, sucks sells. And that's why we're all here. So you can read all those books or just use this meme. Because, as we all know, there's money to be made in improving performance. You get more visitors, you get lower bounce rate, you get more signups, more conversions, more revenue, more search engine traffic. This is always the moment where I say, yes, it is a ranking factor, but that's not why we're doing it. And more success, e-commerce, and site owners love that.
Even despite these advantages, by the way, we still notice that it's sometimes a bit hard to get all shareholders on board. But as a matter of fact, there is a company, Holland & Barrett, that deliberately slowed down 50% of the page views to convince shareholders to start working on performance, because by slowing it down, they noticed obviously a drop in conversion right away. So that was their way of convincing other stakeholders higher up.
Yeah, so maybe, if you're ever, want to be a bit annoying to people who want to do this, you say, hey, just before Black Friday, let's do that. Let's see if we will see results this way. And yeah, happier users love that too. There is many research that tells us that to work on web performance increases sales. It helps mobile revenue by a lot. People will not return on a mobile experience when it's bad. Actually, we all have that one website that we hate, right? That we will not return to. I have like 15 because, but you do not want to become that website. Because not only will I not return, I will tell people that your website sucks to others, and that would be bad. And there's also so much less bounce. But to be able to love, you need to be able to interact. And in real life, you want to talk, you want to listen to, you want to joke, you want to meet up in real life. And we want to talk to each other. That's awesome. On a website, you also want interactivity. You want to click and scroll around. You want to see movement. You want to add to cart. You want drop downs, slide out. These are all moments of interactivity. But to not get frustrated with your loved ones, which I mean, that happens. Sometimes I want to cook and I ask him what he wants for dinner and he's on LinkedIn, because if anyone ever knows Erwin, he's on LinkedIn a lot. So yeah, you want a big, just want to interact. You want a quick response. You do not want to wait for that answer on what he wants for dinner. So that goes to websites as well.
All right. I'm going to throw in a bit of interactivity because that's obviously the topic of the day. So you are all allowed to grab your mobile devices and start this, scan this QR code, or go to mentai.com and use the digital code. Yeah. And just give a thumbs up so that I know if you succeeded in joining the session.
You can join with your real name or a fake name, but if you're confident, then go with your real name, because then you get bragging rights.
Later on. Yeah, that's in another slide.
Oh, that's not happening yet? Oh, I was too quick.
Yeah. Okay. Is anyone having issues joining us on mentai.com? No one? All right. Then we're just going to proceed. Yeah. So the choosing a name will come afterwards, but you can already answer this one. So what is your job title? Front-end developer, back-end developer. All right.
So nice.
What are the other roles? What other roles do we have aside from front-end, back-end dev for SEO specialists?
Web performance.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Full stack.
Full stack. Okay.
Database infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Awesome.
Going to proceed. Do I have any other questions? Someone just changed the job title. Fair enough. Doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as a matter of fact, by the way, there's still a little...
Every time. We've done this one 3 times.
Yeah, I'll come back to that. Okay. I'm first going to explain the 3 metrics that are part of Core Web Vitals. Let's approach this differently. Give me a thumbs up if you are familiar, or I'm going to rephrase this. Give a thumbs up if you heard of these metrics before. So either LCP, CLS, or INP. And give me a thumbs down if you have never heard of these ones before. All right, just one person, so I'm going to, okay. All right, so I'm going to explain a little bit. Although you can also see it in text, but I'm going to explain that anyway. These are the Core Web Vitals, which Google introduced. And what I think is good about these metrics is it isn't about page speed specifically anymore. So back in the days we were talking about load time, DOM content loaded, which really are technical load time metrics. And with Core Web Vitals, it really became technical metrics, technical user experience metrics. So this is the good meetup to talk about these. For example, LCP actually still is a, well, you could say loading speed metric. It's a visual metric, although the other ones are visual as well. But CLS is about the amount of layout shifts, and we might all have experienced a website where we try to click on the add to cart and maybe something was sliding into the viewport and pushing the button down, so you mispressed or maybe even clicked on an ad while you didn't want to click on that ad.
Or you started to read something,
reading an article.
and you were reading that and suddenly came up. I hate that.
So that's what CLS is about. And INP is what we are going to talk about today, is about responsiveness. So, okay, I'm clicking on add to cart, but how fast is the browser able to come back with a visual feedback and confirmation? Because I could try to talk about INP with my parents, but I would lose them quite fast. But they do know when the experience is shitty. For example, if they do click on add to cart or hamburger menu, FAQ, and if the website, if it feels like it's not responding, that's a possible moment of a bounce, for example, or at least user frustration. So that's what INP is about. There is, as a matter of fact, two issues in this slide. One is it's saying that LCP should be faster than 2.5 seconds, but it could be faster or equal to 2.5 seconds. The same applies to CLS and INP. INP should be below or equal to 200 milliseconds.
Or it's actually fact-checked by Barry Pollard on this
Barry
one.
Pollard himself from Google.
Yeah.
There's another issue, and I deliberately left it here just to be able to explain the nuance of each of these metrics. So, once again, we are only going to talk about INP, but I do want to elaborate a little bit on LCP. It is saying over here that it's about when the LCP is loaded. Well, first of all, by the way, what is LCP? LCP is typically about the biggest element within the viewport, which once again typically is an image. Here, image on the home page, or a blog article,
or video,
or on a product page. It's typically, obviously, the product image itself. On a terms and conditions, often there aren't any images over there, so then it's likely a heading 1 or a paragraph, whatever is biggest when it comes to width and height. Okay, so it's often the image. But it isn't about when the image is loaded, so obviously image needs to be downloaded, but it's about when the image is rendered as well. So it first needs to be downloaded, and then it needs to be rendered, and that's when the LCP is being triggered. So that's actually already describing the nuance of the LCP metric.
But we're not talking about LCP today.
All right, let's move on. All is good, or? Yeah, okay. Awesome. All right. So, globally, 24% of tablet and 49% of desktop is passing was passing Core Web Vitals in
August.
Yeah, August. Okay.
On the 75th percentile. So that's actually not all of the websites are passing Core Web Vitals. There's a lot to gain, and it's good that you guys are here because we want to get those stats up.
All right, which brings us to our first question. So I'm going to. Let's see if this is going to work. Yeah, you should now all be able to, enter the name of your cat or dog or whatever.
Or name, just your name.
If you want to stay anonymous. If you think you're going to win, use your real name.
We have a prize.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at this. This is awful. No, this is not awful. I'm so sorry. This is awesome, I wanted to say. You could have actually also had stroopwafels, but I forgot them in the hotel. I'm sorry. But yeah, prizes can be gotten, and also bragging rights. Yeah, so let's go.
Does anyone think he's not able to join all there? Okay, let's proceed. First question, I'm going to start the quiz, and the faster you answer, and the correct answer obviously, the more points you get. All right, first question. What percentage was passing Core Web Vitals on mobile in August 2024? Mobile passing rate of Core Web Vitals. Is it between 25-30, 30-35, 35-40, 40-45? All right. Okay. All right. So it's, in between tablet and desktop. So I guess that was to be expected maybe.
It's below, right? Sorry. It's below desktop and tablets. Mobile will always be the worst. No, it's worse.
Well, then we are going to go a few slides back. No, it's in between. Yeah.
24% of the tablet is doing worse than mobile?
Yeah. It's not, so this is bringing us to the first nuance of Core Web Vitals. Core Web Vitals is only measured on Google Chrome browsers, and not the ones you find on iOS, only on, well, non-iOS operating systems. So that's nuance number one. Nuance number two is, if I'm visiting a website now, my experience, CLS, LCP, even FCP, time first byte is all sent to one big database of Google called Google Chrome User Experience Report, CRUX. But it is only being shared with Google when I've got syncing enabled in my browser. So that already means that if I'm going to open a web page in a private mode, my data is not shared with, well, I don't know what data is being shared, but at least my Core Web Vitals data is not shared with Google. So although this is data based on Google Chrome browser, it is actually, as a matter of fact, a subset of Google Chrome page views. And I'm going to give one example. I'm typically using Google services like YouTube, Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Google Search Console, and whatever, while my parents aren't really using any of those tools. So it's less likely that my parents are logged into their Google Chrome browser and have data synced, while in my case, because I'm using Google products, it's more likely that I am, as a matter of fact, logged into my browser. And then, well, if I have syncing enabled as well, my experiences are all sent to the CRUX dataset.
We actually have a question? Or did someone misclick?
I'm surprised I got the correct answer.
Okay, well, you've got a head start then.
Yeah, doing
Right.
well.
So that is an important nuance. So Core Web Vitals, the way Google is measuring it, is actually already real user monitoring data, but it is not real time at all. They've got a rolling period of 28 days. So if you would look at any source that is showing Core Web Vitals data, then it is always data based on 28 days. And it is based on the 75th percentile. I'm not sure if, no. It's always based on the 75th percentile. So if you're going to do a bit of calculation, it basically means if you are going to do a deploy or improvement today, you should expect first changes in Core Web Vitals data after 3 weeks. 75% of 28 days is 3 weeks. So once again,
Which is royally late, by
yeah.
the way, which is why a RUM makes sense.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that one
either
later.
speed curve or RUMvision, for example. Let's move on to the second question. So grab your mobile devices. And once again, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And here we go. Not sure if you're familiar with FID, but why did Google replace the FID metric with INP?
First input delay.
So INP is a successor of FID, but why did Google replace FID with INP? To annoy developers, or fit only measured until time to interactive, or fit was limited to first interaction and input delay? All right, I've got nothing to explain here. Although might be part of the second slide, I'm not sure. Sometimes I do hear from people, yeah, but Google is changing the rules the whole time, and it might feel like Google is changing the playing field and metrics, but they actually do it to give developers, and site owners especially, give them a better idea of the impact of what they are doing on user experience. So yeah, you could say FID was a test to see if it was a good metric to track interactivity and delays, but the name first input delay is already suggesting what it is doing. It was only tracking the first interaction or the delay during the first interaction, while we might all do more interactions on a single page load, for example, within a single page lifecycle. All right. FID got replaced this year, and as a matter of fact, quite recently, last month, Google fully removed FID from all of their tools as well.
So you will no longer find it.
No, so fully deprecated. All right, which I think is a good thing, because once again, FID was really limited, and it's about 99% of all the 8 million, it's now 60 million domains that are part of the CRUX dataset, but back then, 99% of the 8 million domains in the Google dataset was passing the FID metric, which is also confirming that FID wasn't really a good metric, because it's more than 1% of all those 8 million websites that are using JavaScript. And then, well, in reality, Java can cause quite some issues. So luckily, I've only heard this once. Call by vitals, what a ridiculous concept. And Google just keeps changing the rules. But the fact that there is a new metric actually doesn't change anything on your site. If your site was shitty before, it's still shitty, but now at least we've got a better way of measuring that and visualizing that. So once again, Google isn't annoying developers specifically.
They're actually really trying to help.
Yeah.
We should give them credits for that.
All right, no one abandoned the quiz yet, so let's continue. Third question. What has the biggest correlation with INP? Is it someone's internet speed, or someone's device, or someone's location? All right. I'm not sure what's happening with
It's just
accessibility
very
and contrast. But,
yeah, sorry for that. Styling is important too.
Yeah. Well.
Branding colors.
Nevertheless, is this a trick question? Well, maybe, because back in the days, we would typically think about either improving hosting specs or choosing Fastly, for example, or that it's about the internet speed. And you could say back in the days it was, especially maybe before the mobile device era. However, nowadays, there are more people coming online with mobile devices than desktop devices across the whole globe. And the fact is, mobile devices are still not as powerful as desktop devices. So in reality, it could be both. It could, well, both internet speed could be a challenge, as well as the device as well. For example, well, not a good example. In the Netherlands, it's a, well, I think it's safe to say the Netherlands is a wealthy country, so a lot of people have access to, well, buying the newest devices. And the internet coverage in the Netherlands is also very good.
Because we're teeny tiny.
Yeah, we're a small country, so it's easy to do. So as a result, and as a matter of fact, if you would launch a shop in the Netherlands and then would launch the same shop in a totally different country,
Like Spain.
you will have different Core Web Vitals data. Yeah.
But and actually the interesting thing is, so I used to have the world's shittiest phone because I tend to kill my phones. I drop them on the ground. We have a toddler. But earlier this year, I was like, no, I want a good phone now. I want better pictures. So I got a Google Pixel phone, which is a really good phone, by the way. I'm not being paid to say this. It really is. But the interesting thing that happened, and actually as a developer, this is good to test with. The experience that I had on sites that I visited often was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Everything worked better. It worked faster. It felt snappier, and that is exactly what INP tries to tell you, because this is something that we do as developers. We tend to have good devices. We tend to have a good phone, and if we test our site, then it feels nice, and we're like, yeah, we can ship this. This is awesome. But a shittier phone, and this can be a phone that, well, I used to have around $200, but it can be the phone that you passed on to your parents or your little sister. They are still around, and actually that gap is widening every day. Alex Russell, if you ever want some additional interesting facts on it, you should read it. The gap between a good performance and a bad performance on phones is growing every day. Yeah. And the differences are really not just data, but you can feel it. So I would actually suggest just having a lousy phone in your office or run it on browser stack, but a real phone has a better experience to get your point across, and say to your developer or do yourself, let's see how it feels on this site, on this deployment. Does this feel good? Because the difference is stark, really.
Yeah. And this data is backing that up as well. Last year during Performance Now, I spoke with Rick
Viscomi.
And Viscomi from Google, and he asked us, hey, can we dive into your data, because it's way more work to dive into our own data. So can we dive into your data and see a correlation between the device memory and the amount of good, moderate, or poor experiences, and specifically INP data.
Can I just add something? I remember once Facebook banned iPhones from all the executives because they didn't realize how bad the Android experience was. And
That-
had to
Okay.
force
Ah,
them to improve their Android thing because
Yeah.
Android was becoming a much larger part of the audience.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good one. Yes. This is something else, but I would love it if Microsoft did that with their Office 365. But then the ironic part is that it actually runs worse on Windows. And I don't know how that happened.
Once upon a time, they used Windows phones and they didn't realize how the rest of the world was.
No, exactly. But so, yeah, be aware of the real world when you're developing. Let's have that as a takeaway from this meetup. But yeah, so let's move on. So yeah, because we see it in the data set. The worse a device memory is, the worse the experience will be. And the differences are really big.
all right. Let's get more technical. Although just with a simple example. Because I hope it makes sense that doing the second one, using CSS instead of using JavaScript, for example, well, I hope it makes more sense. But obviously, this is also less work for a browser. So if you start doing everything in JavaScript, your website will become slower, will be experienced in a worse way.
Seriously.
Do you have the...
I bitched about Microsoft and now this happens.
Oh,
They heard that.
they just, were they trying to update something?
Yes.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Always bad timing. Okay.
AI at work.
Yeah, guys, how closely are you working together with Microsoft? But moving on.
Yeah. So I'm not going to explain this any further because I hope it makes sense that if you build your website in a fully SPA way, for example, that there will be more users having issues with your website than when you would build a, well, nowadays it's called a multi-page application, but just a static website.
A normal website.
Yeah, old school website. So that could mean that I hope a lot of the developers are still educated and starting with HTML and CSS first instead of JavaScript. But we will all have a moment where it becomes more interesting to adopt more JavaScript, and then at the end of the, let's not say at the end of our career, but through our career, we might find out that, maybe using JavaScript everywhere might not be the best idea for your users, maybe for your experience, but not for the experience of your users. So that's also another consideration, developer experience versus user experience. Okay, let's move on to a new question. So this is a code example. Is it? No, it's just pure vanilla JavaScript, where we are adding a heading 1 to our document and then doing something with the CSS display property. So grab your mobile devices because there is a new question here. All right. Going to move to the next slide. Waiting for players. 13 players already. Here we go. The faster you answer, the more points you get. And will the heading 1 be visible? No, yes, or only for a split second with this code. All right. Yeah, this was a bit of a trick question, obviously, again, because that's what is making this fun. So let's move back to the code. And I'm using this example. I stole this from, I'll come back to that later. I'm using this to explain how a browser works. And when I learned how a browser works, everything became way more clear for me to basically how JavaScript is becoming an issue in the devices of our users. So you might think that I am creating a heading 1 element, then appending it to the body. You might then think, okay, the heading 1 element is visible, and then afterwards, quite fast afterwards, I'm changing the display setting to none, meaning the heading 1 is not visible anymore. So you might expect that in between, the heading 1 will be visible for a split second. However, the browser tries to be as efficient as possible, so a browser will execute all JavaScript at once, which basically means at the end of the, call stack, there is no JavaScript anymore, and that's where the browser thinks, okay, I can now safely render without having any risk of needing to do re-renders. So once again, a browser is just trying to be as efficient as possible, which is good because the INP should then become better. But in this case, it basically means the heading 1 will never be visible here. That's the end result. I could talk about this for a whole hour. Maybe I duplicated this. I think I just duplicated this. Yeah, okay. I could talk about this for a full hour, but someone else already did this, Jake Archibald. As a matter of fact, if you just Google the event loop by Jake Archibald, it will be the first hit. I stole this example from him as well. But this is how the event loop is working. So there could be new JavaScript tasks queued up, and the event loop is then just trying to get rid of all the tasks. And once there are no tasks left, the browser event loop will move on to the basically styling, layout, and rendering tasks. This is also how you can create an infinite loop. If you are adding tasks continuously, then your browser will basically freeze, for example.
Yeah.
So this is how the brief example is being executed in the browser. And knowing this, well, once I learned about this, it becomes way more logical what's happening in the browser and how JavaScript is becoming an issue. Because in reality, I showed just a few lines of code, and in reality, there is way more JavaScript happening on the website because it's not only our first-party JavaScript, but also third-party JavaScript that is being added to a website. All right, so can we then just lazy load all our JavaScript and be done with it? Unfortunately, no.
Well, you can.
Well, you could try. As a matter of fact, you could even, I'm not sure if I can get rid of the, all right. As a matter of fact, you can, and you will even get a better Lighthouse score. And I'm not sure if we talked about this before, but...
how do we feel about our Lighthouse score, guys? Good question. Do we look at the Lighthouse score when we have core Web Vitals?
Thumbs up for those using Lighthouse. Or thumbs up for those that have used Lighthouse before. All right. Which means
all of them.
We haven't. Okay. Thumbs up for those that, well, no, let's not make this a question. No, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, no, but actually, yes. But who goes completely for the green Lighthouse score over a good core Web Vitals score? Thumbs up. Can we do that again? No, now we're done. Yeah, get thumbs down for that one. Yeah.
Thumbs down for?
For putting Lighthouse first.
Okay.
So, if to get 100% Lighthouse score, would you lazy load JavaScript? Trick question.
So there actually are a lot of plugins for WordPress, Shopify that could lazy load all JavaScript, and once again you will get a better Lighthouse score. And if you would share that score on LinkedIn or other socials, you probably get a lot of likes because Lighthouse was back in the days. Lighthouse was the best tool we had, and it's still a very good tool. But then Core Web Vitals came around, and Lighthouse, the performance score of Lighthouse, does not have any relation with SEO. And there are still a lot of SEO specialists that think that a 100% score, or basically 90% plus score, will have a good impact on SEO.
A lot of business owners as well.
As well, yeah. Which I get, because business owners just want to know, are we doing a good job or not? They just want a single score. But PageSpeed isn't like, you can't express PageSpeed in one score because, as I explained before, we've got LCP, CLS, INP, all telling a totally different story about someone's experience.
Yeah, so should we lazy load all JavaScript?
No.
No.
As a matter of fact, if you would do that, then JavaScript might be executed all at once and your INP could become even worse than before. So lazy loading all JavaScript is not a good idea. It should be done with more
except if you're going for that 100% Lighthouse score. But I say use another hack for that and do not let it hinder your real users.
And this is what could happen in real life, going live with a very green Lighthouse score, and then in reality afterwards you might learn that you aren't actually passing Core Web Vitals because, and this is question 5 of 6. All right, 2 players dropped out.
No, they'll be here.
There we go. All right, yes, start quiz. which Lighthouse metric is closest to INP. So if you would use Lighthouse, which metric is closest? Time to interactive, total blocking time, time to first byte, or none? TTI, TBT, TTFB, or none? Another trick question. Time to first byte doesn't even exist anymore. Well, it does exist behind the scenes, but it's not used and showed in Lighthouse anymore since, I think, version 10, but I don't know. Total blocking time is the correct answer. Time to first byte, if you want to have a good time to first byte, good time to first byte, you need to go to Fastly, or maybe
Cloudflare, maybe.
Yeah,
but we don't talk about that.
But this is a server-side metric, so it's also not related to something that's happening in the browser itself, a front-end metric like INP. And what I'm trying to say is INP doesn't even exist in a laboratorium or synthetic test, so you don't even get INP in Lighthouse because, and that's my next slide, real users cannot be simulated. I might be experiencing a web page differently than, once again, my parents, for example. I know how websites are built, so I know that I should not press the hamburger menu right away because I know stuff is still loading. But as soon as my parents or any other non-technical person is seeing the first, well, once again, the hamburger menu, for example, they could start to click already while JavaScript isn't even loaded or JavaScript is still executing at that very moment. So what I'm trying to say is, the experience, everyone is experiencing a website differently, and everyone starts to click at a different moment during a page load. So you just cannot simulate INP in a synthetic test.
Which is awesome for us because we're a real user monitoring solution.
Yeah, you can measure it in real user monitoring data. All right. So let's dive into INP behind the scenes, because even INP is more nuanced than just what we have explained so far. Most metrics, by the way, time first byte, you can also break down time first byte in redirect time, actual server response time, etc. The same applies to LCP as well. LCP isn't just about downloading the image, but also about how soon can the browser actually start downloading the image. How soon did the browser discover that image? And then, once it is downloaded, how fast is the image being rendered? Or was the rendering task delayed by some other JavaScript? Again, JavaScript. Was the rendering task delayed by JavaScript tasks, for example? The same applies to INP metric as well. You can also break down INP. And, well, yeah, let's find out if this is going to make sense. Because this is visualizing the main thread of a browser. And I should have said this before when talking about the event loop. Browsers are single-threaded. There are some nuances to this, but let's simplify things.
They can't multitask, like men.
Those are your words.
Sorry.
But fair enough.
I knew I had one. No, I can't multitask either. No, just like people.
But it's the truth. Browsers are single-threaded. Obviously, they can still download stuff and resources, CSS files, JavaScript files, images, while it is doing some rendering work. But they cannot execute JavaScript while also rendering something to the screen. So, simplified, browsers are single-threaded. And that basically means that when I'm trying to animate something, but JavaScript is running, my animation will become less smooth, or the JavaScript is being delayed, for example. Which could be caused by, well, either first-party JavaScript, my own JavaScript, or third-party JavaScript. And let's break this down. Let's visualize me clicking on the hamburger menu or add to cart, but something was still running at that very moment. So whenever a chat widget is popping up, it first needs to be executed, obviously. You know, the pixels of the chat widget can only be rendered after all the files were downloaded and after the related JavaScript was executed. So if that JavaScript was still executing during the moment I tried to click, the browser cannot even come back to my to the click itself. So that's called the input delay. So maybe the third party, I'm not sure if I'm in the way of the camera, I'm not. So at a certain moment, the third party starts to execute, and if I try to interact during that moment, the browser still have to get rid of or handle the rest of the JavaScript tasks of the third party, and that's the input delay phase. Next up is the actual event listeners. So I added an event listener to my hamburger menu to add a class to whatever element and to change the styling. So the event handlers are the processing time. Obviously, I can add events to, I can add JavaScript to any event, pointer up, mouse up, click, etc. So that will all become part of the processing time. And then, once the JavaScript was executed, probably some CSS class was added to an HTML element, and the result is some pixels needs to be changed in the screen, because if I click on hamburger menu, I obviously expect the menu to appear, which is the presentation delay. And after the presentation delay, that's where the actual pixels are rendered in the browser, and that's basically the next visual change that a user is experiencing. So, as I said before, my parents, for example, or any other non-technical person has no idea of what is happening in the browser, but they do expect a visual update once they click on an element. And that's what INP is all about. All right, a moment for the silence. And this is, a breakdown visualized as Ram is showing this, where you should then be able to see what each part, or basically how each part is represented in your INP data. So in reality, it could be mainly processing time, for example, but chances are that in reality, it's the combination of each of these phases that will make up your INP. Any questions here? Now that we have sirens in the background anyway? No? All right. Then we're going to move on. Something I like, by the way, some changes have been made by the Google Chrome team.
Have you guys seen it? The new performance panel?
Yeah, as shown on the
Isn't
right.
it awesome? Yeah. It's so helpful. Yeah.
And also in the newest Canary one, they have annotations too.
Yes.
So that is also interesting.
Yeah. It's really great. It's also really great both for debugging, but also to give insights to your to other people to show, look, it's not just this is what's happening in the field data. The INP one is really nice as well. That we aren't talking about that here, but that you can just click around to see every delay. It's very helpful.
Yep.
But
can I just ask a general question, going back to the topic of the quality of the device?
Mm-hmm.
There's specific segments of devices. Where do Chromebooks lie in quality and keeping up to date? And because more and more, especially in education, right? Everything's going online, and Chromebooks are the deployment thing. And
do we actually track that on desktop, Aaron?
Oh
yeah, of course. Yeah, so on Chromebooks, which is a desktop device, and more educations are using them instead of Windows or Apples, which I understand that be much more expensive. But what is their quality in GPU? And actually, we track it on mobile, but do we track it on desktop, what the CPU is? Can we do that?
CPU and desktop, yeah.
Yeah, we do that?
Well, no, not CPU. Device memory.
Yeah, well, let us look it up after this talk, okay? Because I'm not sure out of my head, but we would have the data.
I'm not sure how Chromebook is identified in our data, but
no.
We could check.
We could check, just get back us.
It's Chrome, but the infrastructure itself is wildly different.
Yeah, because we don't just track Chrome, but we probably track like the device memory that it has. So we wouldn't be able to probably know that it would be Chromebook. Maybe we do.
Yeah.
I don't know it out of the top of my head, but I'd be happy to check it for you.
We'll come back to that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But because, to get back to it, because from these last years, I mean, INP became a core web vital. That was awesome. But how will we fix that? Well, actually, this was an interesting thing. Google themselves had trouble with that one. They were happy INP was coming. But how do we fix it? Well, in this last year, and you see it from 121 till 129, many things have happened to try to help us as developers to make performance better. In 121, Whiskers came, in 123, LoAF came, and in 129, this new performance panel came, and also scheduler yield. And we'd be happy, and we're gonna talk about more of these, but we're very happy with this because we should acknowledge that looking back at 1 year of INP almost, it is the hardest one. If you have issues, fixing INP is the hardest one to do.
Yeah, it's the most technical one and the most intimidating one as well, I would say. Yeah.
Yes, so that's the reality of INP right now. So it's, well, we're very happy to have these solutions. It's very much a work in progress.
Yeah. And once again, Google Chrome team is working at making it easier to debug INP as well.
So can I ask a follow-up question?
Of course.
On iOS, Chrome is using WebKit.
Yeah.
So where do all these metrics show up?
Well,
They don't.
INP doesn't, INP doesn't get reported in Safari.
So yes, Google Chrome does exist on iOS, but it's not really Google Chrome. So the INP metric and CLS as well, and LCP as well, they are supported by Chromium browsers, which include Edge, Opera, and Google Chrome. Firefox also supports LCP, by the way. I'm not sure if...
Brave also counts as Chromium.
Yeah,
exactly.
Brave is Chromium as well. Yeah, and it's actually something we're really pushing as a performance community to have broader acceptance outside of Chrome for these core web vitals, because we would love to deep dive into INP issues on Safari, but we can't because it doesn't get reported.
The other thing that might happen is that the EU might force Apple to open that limitation and let people have their own native.
Well, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll talk to the people in Brussels, okay, when I'm back.
Can't you install native browsers on Apple devices in the EU now, or is that not?
That we could probably do a whole meetup on that. Because that was a fight. The open web standards, people had a fight with that one, and it was sort of, well, yeah.
I haven't tested it, but I think you're correct. Yeah, should be possible by now.
That's what the articles say, but like I don't know.
But I don't.
Sure.
No, me neither. But yeah, that's how I interpreted the article as well, or all the news around it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But did it really, or was it like a bit of a fake out?
I don't know.
Because that's sort of how I remembered
Apple
it. But
definitely doesn't want that.
No.
Yeah.
It's a fake out. There'll
Yeah.
be some incremental changes.
Oh.
Right?
The EU will step
Yeah.
in again saying, no,
Yeah.
then Apple will open the next thing.
Yeah.
that's
The first
how.
thing was just the payments link out.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That was how I was remembering
Yeah.
the drama. Yeah, it's drama basically. But it would be awesome. But we're not there yet.
No.
It's literally political. Well, you guys know that. You live in America.
Gonna move on.
Whiskers.
Talking about whiskers, why is it called whiskers? Well, because of this. You can see little whiskers at the left and at the right as well. Let's do it like this. Just like a cat has whiskers as well. And this is helping me because the performance panel can be quite intimidating already. And especially when you would be auditing a Next or Nuxt website, it will then become even more intimidating because all the tasks and flame charts that you're seeing in DevTools, in the performance panel specifically. But once the Google Chrome team introduced those whiskers, it became way more, easier to align what's happening when I'm clicking and what's happening in the flame chart on the main thread. So this is representing the main thread. We can see a part of a flame chart, and the performance panel was then also showing interactions in the interactions lane, and you can see the individual numbers, which are then also visualized with the actual event listener, the processing time, as I explained before, and the whiskers before. The whisker before is representing the input delay part, and the whisker at the end is then representing the presentation delay part. So, we can now all align with what's happening, and we can clearly see that there was basically no input delay, and the processing time is in fact corresponding with an event listener, as a click event is happening over here. All right, moving on. So, how to track INP? Well, this was already one example. In DevTools, you can track INP. You can try to use Lighthouse, but you can then only work with the total blocking time metric, which isn't as representing when it comes to real users. Because, well, what applies to you, and this is another thing, if you are using DevTools, what applies to you might not apply to me or most of your audience, and that's why you would want to use a RUM tool as well, either SpeedGraph or RUMvision.
But actually, LoAF is not reported in SpeedGraph.
No. Well, I'm not sure if has been a change recently, but...
We've been in New York, we've been a bit
Oh,
out
last
of touch.
update, last info, no, that's correct.
Yeah.
All right, as a matter of fact, we were the first RUM tool that supported LoAF data.
Sorry.
All right. Are we saying Google too often, or did we trigger something? Okay. All right, Google is listening now. Okay.
Yeah. Google, Microsoft, darn.
Even in their docs, web.dev docs, Google is saying that if you would want to track INP, you should do so in the field. Once again, in the field means tracking real user data or, well, RUM. They even have an awesome explanatory video about both INP and LoAF and their very own Web Vitals library. So Google is maintaining an official Web Vitals library, and RUMvision is built on top of that library, which basically means whenever Google comes with a new feature in its library, then we are able to support that feature as well.
Yeah. So Web Vitals 5, for instance, just came out. We're moving forward to that next week, which makes our lives much easier. So if you want to track Web Vitals, then RUMvision is a perfect one, because actually from all of these, I think we might be the only one who are on Web Vitals.
I don't know. Is Cloudflare using a Web Vitals library, or are they using their own tracking agents? Both. Okay.
Okay, well, maybe Cloudflare. But we don't talk about that. We talk about Fastly. But actually, this was a really awesome moment for us as RUMvision, because we only found it 3 years ago. We have paying client for 2. And here we are featured on Google I.O. And actually, we were there twice, which was really cool for us. But if you're not have any more information necessary on INP, because, well, we're talking about it in an hour, and you still want more, then this is a really good explainer how to track INP in the field. But we will just tell you more about it right now, so we'll move on.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're going to move on to our last question, so you can grab your mobile devices. Let's see how many dropped out.
No, they're committed. I'm missing 3. Come on, guys.
All right, one more. Going to wait a few more seconds.
No.
All right, I'm going to start the quiz. Yeah, there we go. Trick question maybe, because what is the best CSS property to animate elements? Is it margin top or padding top or transform? All right, this one was too easy. Okay, fair enough. So, obviously, transform is standing out a bit, so that might be the reason for some of you to, well, go with transform.
No, you guys just knew this, right?
Or knew this.
Yeah, let's give a bit of faith.
But I'm going to explain a little bit anyway, for the one person that picked margin top. So if you're using transform, luckily you still have a lot of flexibility, because you can still scale, skew, and translate stuff. And when I'm talking about translate, you can just basically move something around by any amount of pixels or percentage, whatever you like. And whenever you're using transform or opacity, those are the 2 CSS properties. If you're using one of those, it's basically being, well, I'm not sure if offloaded is being the best word, but it's basically done using the GPU of your device, the graphical card, instead of the CPU. And the CPU is blocked when the main thread is blocked. So whenever some JavaScript is being executed on the main thread, it's done using the CPU of your device. So if you do want to animate anything, you should use the transform property, and you basically get an animation for free that is not feeling laggy or whatever, or flaky. And it comes with more frames per second as a result. 60 frames per second instead of, if you would use margin top, just 30 frames per second. It might vary per device. So it's basically a free animation that will not stand in the way of any other JavaScript tasks or other rendering work. And I'm not sure if this is the best country to give this example, but if you would be in the EU, in Europe, you would experience a lot of cookie notices. And what I typically experience is, and you might have seen this as well maybe, a cookie banner sliding in from the bottom. And you might have seen laggy sliding behavior. So the cookie notice is sliding in like this, quite smooth, and then it starts to do this, and then it starts to slide smoothly again. If you're seeing that, you now know that during that animation, some JavaScript was running. And because some JavaScript was running, the main thread was blocked, and the animation could not continue because it was basically broken up by the JavaScript tasks.
That's
so when
the animation jitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So whenever you want to animate a sticky header, for example, a header that becomes smaller during scrolling, you should not use a negative margin top, but you should combine transform with translate, a negative translate, for example. All right. So trick question maybe, although a lot of people
not so
answer
much,
this one
I think.
correctly. No. Okay. All right. We'll come back to the leaderboard and the end results later on. Because this is, in fact, an example of, a well-known cookie solution in Europe at least, that is doing it the poor way, using the wrong CSS property. So this is an example of how not to do it and how to get in the way of JavaScript. And do not believe third parties if they are saying that they don't come with an impact, because if these people are willing to lie under these circumstances, you bet third parties are willing to lie as well about the impact of their third parties.
Well, at least they're marketing, because I find this one a bit unnuanced, although also a bit true. Third parties aren't here to, mess up your user's experience. They want to help. That's their goal. However, they also don't know that they can measure their impact. And on a Lighthouse score, they might have been doing fine, while in real life they weren't. This is actually what we're talking about today. We can measure interaction better these days, and though the impact is also, visualized better these days. So, not untrue that, there's literally a saying in this community apparently about it, that if it comes with zero impact, call.
Or a one-liner JavaScript,
So it's true. And if they say that, then you should still have a web performance expert, or yourself have a look at it. They don't want to be bad, but they very often are. How bad are they, you ask? Well, this is why we love LoAF. We're finally come to LoAF, people. The long animation frames. Why do we have long animation frames now? Well, the long tasks that we still have, they came short and so we needed to reframe them. This was a very funny way of saying that. Noam Rosenthal from Google came up with that on a talk with me, because I had a talk with him to ask, why do we have LoAF? Why did you guys get started on that? And it was literally this. It was very hard to debug INP issues just with long tasks.
long task API.
Yeah, the long task API, and they needed a better way to do that, and they started to use frames. And this is, where you come in again. I'll not...
I'm just going to show some code examples of how to start tracking LoAF yourselves. It's just an API. You can track it the same way. Well, you might be familiar with maybe this code snippet, because that's also how you could track LCP, for example, and long tasks as well. But once again, long tasks came short in...
we needed to reframe them.
Well, it came short in naming and shaming a specific, if I'm allowed to say that, or it's like a git blame for your JavaScript or any other tasks, but typically JavaScript. And you can actually see the exact host name, but also the exact file that was blocking the thread, blocking the main thread in general. And if you combine that with INP, so if you then start to collect LoAF data when an INP was happening, then you've got long tasks on steroids. At least you've got very valuable information. I'll come back to that later on. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with the overrides, the local overrides functionality in DevTools, all right? So I'm then the only one, obviously, seeing my changes. And then I'm then adding, a way more elaborated piece of code to the web page, and then I'm then able to track all the LoAFs happening within that very web page. And this is the start of that code, you could say. The result you get is a LoAF entry or multiple LoAF entries. And the thing I'm most interested about is the scripts array, because the scripts array is actually holding all the tasks that took longer than 5 milliseconds, because otherwise, if this scripts array would report all tasks, even those shorter than 5 milliseconds, then the LoAF API itself would become a performance issue, and that's not what you want to achieve. So it's reporting all tasks taking longer than 5 milliseconds, and then showing this per script. The duration, very convenient. The invoker type, was it an event listener? Yeah?
Yeah, I was just curious, so like there's, I guess different devices have like wildly different like refresh rates. Like a low-end phone these days will have like 60 hertz, and like a high-end phone will have even 144. So like your frame times will vary wildly. So like,
yeah.
Is that 5 milliseconds? Is that static? Is it always 5 milliseconds,
yeah.
or does it vary with?
No,
device?
always 5 milliseconds.
Always 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on worse conditions, you will get more LoAFs, or at least the LoAFs will be worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the type of invoker was an event listener. So was it the result of a user actually clicking, a developer, I should say, a developer adding an event listener to a specific event? Or was it caused by a third party that was unfortunately executing some JavaScript during that moment, etc., etc. A timeout could also be the cause. Maybe a timeout was, if you are using set timeout to trigger some JavaScript later on the page, and that timeout was triggered, and 1 millisecond after a user tried to click on something, then unfortunately the browser was blocked because something started to execute a millisecond before. The exact source URL, including, and yeah, this is correct. Back in the days, the information was combined into a single property, but they now split it up into source URL, source function name, and source character number, or character position, I should say. So once again, it's basically like a git blame, where you can really identify the exact file and also the character position in that file. If you combine this, you could come up with a dashboard, which is what RUMvision did as well, where you can see the impact per hostname. This is actual real user data coming from real users. In our case, showing data of third parties of all of our clients using RUMvision. And how is this helpful? Well, it's still a lot of data, but even non-technical people like marketeers, SEO specialists,
Product owners,
can now start discussions about a specific third party. So maybe a marketeer increased the sampling rate in Hotjar, and you can then see that Hotjar becomes a bigger issue. And then you know, okay, maybe we should now reduce the sampling rate, or not using Hotjar altogether.
because we see that Clarity, for instance, has a lot less impact.
Yeah, and Hotjar over there. But you can also maybe test different cookie solutions if you are a website with a European audience, and draw the conclusion that maybe, okay, Consent Manager might not be the best pick here, and maybe I should go with, do we even have good cookie solutions? Yes, we do. Cookiebot.
And but still, this is on all, well, millions and millions and millions of page views. But the nice thing about the RUM is that you can check it on your own user. So we can benchmark, and we offer that option. So you can benchmark against this. So we say, hey, look, cookie notices. What do we see in the general data set? But what applies to the general audience might just not apply to you, which is where RUM data can be helpful, because you see the impact of your real users. And then you can make the decision, yeah, you know, do we actually need that Hotjar, or do we kick it out because it's hurting our users? And especially now that we're getting to Black Friday these are discussions to have. Do we need on Black Friday a Hotjar? Do we need A/B testing, or can we get rid of him because it's hurting our users' experiences? And to get back to the very first slide, a better user experience gets you more money. So is it worth it? And I can't answer that for you. You will have to have discussions with people. But now at least you've measured the impact, and that is enormously helpful.
Yeah.
So question. So do you use this mostly to measure the impact of third-party scripts, or can you use it for your own internal CMS optimization?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the question is, can you only use this for third parties or basically also for first-party JavaScript? So we did call this dashboard third-party dashboard because obviously site owners want to know about the impact of third parties. But in reality, we only filtered, we only are showing third parties here, because otherwise we might show data of our customers. But in reality, if you would sign up to RUMvision and track your own website, it would show both first-party data and third-party data. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, you can debug, and actually you can click it, and you go deeper. You get actually back to the technical dashboard, and actually could really deep dive into the issues here. This is just a general overview, but in our opinion, having finally this impact of real users' experiences on the third party finally gives us something to throw back at those third parties, say, well, apparently your one line of JavaScript did have an impact. Yeah. So this is why we love LoAF.
So you could familiarize yourselves with the API and test yourselves, but once again, you're then basically only testing the impact during your interactions.
Trust me, I lost 2 weeks of him for building this in our tooling. So you could also...
You could also forget all about these last three slides, and if you're less technical or not willing to spend the time on learning about familiarize yourselves with the API, check this dashboard in RUMvision.
Yeah, you would need a subscription though, sorry.
Spoiler alert, if you do have an SPA like Next.js, you will see way more first-party impact than third-party impact, is what I'm noticing with clients.
Yeah, who knew?
All right. Well, there is actually a new feature, but I'm not going to discuss that part. But if you are going to use the code snippet that I showed before and extend it a bit, then you could, for example, nerd out and show all LoAFs on top of your main thread activity, which was also helping me to align a bit better and group a bit better what is happening on the main thread. Because once again, a few bars, as you can see over here, a few bars is less intimidating than all the flame charts in the performance panel. So I'm typically doing this to see what's happening on a higher level, and that's helping me to, once again, align a bit better and see what I should focus on and where I want to zoom into. All right.
Sergey wants a picture.
Okay. I can actually just share the exact code that is doing this as well.
I assume it uses...
performance mark, performance measure is what I'm using here. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. All right. So how to improve INP? There's a new caching mechanism. Well, it's fairly new in Chrome.
It was very old in all
Safari already had this, for example, for a few years before, where the browser is basically saving a snapshot of a page whenever I'm whenever I'm navigating to a new page. The browser tries to save a snapshot of the previous page in case I'm returning to that page, in case I'm hitting the back button. And if the browser was able to save a snapshot of the previous page, then it will also include the exact scrolling position, but also all JavaScript that was executed already doesn't need to be re-executed. So it's not a full page load if I'm hitting the back button. It's just saving, well, the whole state of the previous page.
And so, actually big things are happening here right now.
What I want to say is, with this in the back of our minds, we actually don't need SPAs anymore, I would say. Because this is basically achieving what SPA pretends to, wants to be, maybe. That's correct what you're mentioning as well. if there is a header, a response header that's saying that a page should not be cached, cache control, no store, then the browser is saying, okay, the server or platform is telling me not to save this page as a snapshot cache. But browsers now start to ignore this because developers and platforms are overusing that response header without consideration, while it's often perfectly fine to save that very page as a snapshot in the browser cache. So yeah, I'm not sure what Safari is doing, but Chrome is currently on 10% rollout of ignoring this specific response header, the cache control response header, in 10% of navigations, just to test if it's a good thing to do. And I think they published
And in the
recently,
upcoming months, they'll go to 2030. I believe in 2025, they're rolling it out completely. That back-forward cache, except that if you declare that you do not want it, will be rolled out and will ignore your no store.
To this, but there's a whole article explaining this.
Yeah, but it is very interesting because what we really see on back-forward cache is that there are public data sets available through this, also RUM data as well, is that a lot of cache back-forward misses are missed because it's not used, and it's an instant page hit. It's an instant page. We love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's back-forward cache.
Yes. It makes sense that if you use less JavaScript, INP will improve as well.
Easier said than done. Sometimes we do understand that.
Yeah, there's a new API in town, Skeleton Yield. So yeah, Google introduced a new metric. They then also introduced LoAF to help you identify what is causing that metric, what is causing an INP issue, but you want to fix it as well. And that's why Google introduced Scheduler Yield. There are good articles out there on web.dev as well. So I'm not really going to elaborate on this one. Prevent layout trashing, I'm also not going to elaborate on that one as well. But if you want to dive into this, I would say Google this. Content visibility is that is a one-liner, not JavaScript, but it's a one-liner CSS property. I am typically using content visibility for drop-down navigations or very big footers with a lot of HTML in it, for example, a lot of links to whatever deep dive pages. Because what content visibility does, if you combine it with content visibility hidden, you're basically telling the browser, okay, do not render the content within this and all child elements within this HTML element. So it's basically lazy rendering, you could say. The browser is just skipping the rendering work and move on to the next job. So that can speed things up as well. And obviously, regularly review unused third parties. So also keep checking your Google Tag Manager, check whatever third parties you're not using anymore.
Get access to your Google Tag Manager even, because you'd be scared what's happening there. Or use a RUM and then find yourself quickly wanting to be added to that Google Tag Manager. And actually the funny thing is that the Barry brothers from Google tends to say, get access to it and just have reading rights. I say turn it around. Make sure that you have publishing rights, but marketing doesn't.
All right, almost there.
Yeah, because, well, the real-time control of those SOCs, those site speed user experiences, are within your reach. And actually, this is why you would want to focus on Core Web Vitals, but you would also want a RUM. Because sites change. You do new code deploys. You add third parties. You want validations. 28 days delay, or 21 if we're going to be technical about it, is too late. You want it within 24 hours. It also saves you so much time to debug if you have RUM data. It's just so much faster than running all of these things that we've shown you. We can just, you install us and you have the data. And it's assurance that marketing publishing people, when they add that third party or have more A/B tests, that at least you get an alert that they're screwing up your site speed user experience. And these are all things to keep in mind when you want to optimize INP. You want a solution that can help you do so, which is why you would want a RUM.
All right. Let's finalize things and go to the leaderboard and see what the last question is doing to the score. Not there yet. How is this going to change things? Okay.
Pepe,
Congrats. All right.
congratulations, well done.
I should win a special prize. So I do have a careful question. This was all about Chromium and all the things that you can do.
Yeah.
And of course, Safari users are still there. And I'm curious about the spread between the two platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And are there any things that you do for Chrome that have an accidental positive effect for Safari users or have an accidental negative effect for Safari users?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question.
No, you look at these metrics and then you can start to optimize and have certain best practices and all that. And you can measure their effect on the Safari users.
Mm-hmm.
But is there anyone on the Chrome users? Is there anyone on the Safari side who's saying like, hey, you made that change and now suddenly something
We're
went
seeing
bad on
issues.
this side?
Yeah.
And we still have some significant percentage of Safari users.
Yeah. So the question basically is, okay, we have eyes on how Google Chrome users are experiencing the website, but are we then actually also improving the experience for Safari users?
Or harming them by accident.
Yeah, or harming them. First of all, typically, I think it's safe to say that, well, my device included is typically a few years behind on iOS devices. So that basically means that the experience amongst iOS devices, users with iOS devices, should be better out of the box already. However, that is specifically related to JavaScript work, CPU work, and main thread work, while a layout shift happening on a Chromium browser is probably the same on a Safari browser as well. The same applies to LCP. If you are improving the subparts of an LCP, so if you improve the time first byte, then obviously it will improve amongst Chromium users, but also Safari users. If you would improve the rendering time, the download size of an image, etc., that should also benefit
But
Safari
a browser
users.
tends to be the same. A browser, if it's Chromium or Safari, the way a browser works is equal. The way they report things depend. And actually, that is something that that's actually what I said. The performance community really wants these metrics to be added to Safari as well. So we have a broader set.
I'm sure they're watching each other.
Yes, and Safari tends to be behind, which is why we can't get a baseline on some things.
Yeah.
However, there are most of the things that you can use, like schedule yields, they're progressive.
Yeah.
So while you could, a yield. So that's what you basically do is like you tell them this is not important, get out of the way before I do the things that I do want to do. That's a progressive solution, so it won't work on Safari. So people would actually have a worse experience there, but sorry, we can't help that. But at least the people who are on Chrome will benefit from that yield. And then hopefully, if we are seeing good results with that, and of course, the Apple team is watching as well. If the results are good, well, probably then actually that yield might get added to Safari as well. So yes, we are very much on a Chromium talk right now, but it will benefit Safari users as well in most cases, or at least be progressive.
Progressive enhancements is typically pushing web forward, as in.
I'll add one more thing just to defend Apple and the way WebKit works.
Yeah.
Apple's obsession is over energy efficiency and battery life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had multiple rendering engines, it would end up being chaos, right? You know how Chromium works on desktops with memory and energy things and all of that. So that's why the WebKit requirement kind of exists.
Yeah. Luckily, that's a fight they have to fight out. But
we kind of need to wrap things up. Yeah.
All right. That's all. No questions from the audience? Well,
are there any questions from the audience?
If there are any other questions, do let us know.
Okay, I had a very interesting point about disabling the hardware in the Black Fridays, or Cyber Monday days.
Mm-hmm.
So I come from e-commerce background as well. So the pitch to my team, why should we disable it? Now, can you give me some use cases, like how did you convince the client, okay, we don't need hardware?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what should I tell my
Yeah.
company? Like,
Okay.
don't eat on the Black Friday.
Yeah.
So
Repeat it first.
You want munition to convince your other shareholders to basically pause some third parties during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Yeah. Well, I am aware of some use cases on web.dev as well. Some interesting use cases specifically related to, well, INP, but also maybe removing third parties. So I hope those are enough to maybe convince those shareholders. I'm not sure if that's fully answering your question.
So I think in web.dev, most of them are related to ROI. They have increased the conversion.
Yeah, that's correct.
There is nowhere they mention that some of them disable the third party stuff.
Yeah.
That help the conversions grow. That's the main tricky part.
And what did it help grow? Help the
conversions grow.
conversion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think actually, and this is actually a CRO discussion that I like to read with, because I like to read in all communities. I think that performance are in all communities, so I like to read what everyone is doing. And actually CRO kind of agrees with us on this. You need to do your testing and your optimizations before you're going to have a busy day. This is why we see code freezes. This is actually part of it that you would want to freeze, because gonna track everything on a Hotjar level is actually also bad for the load. It adds to the load, and it also, they are willing to acknowledge that a Hotjar comes with a performance price. So in these cases, to convince to not have Hotjar is to convince you get more sales out of it because you're not hindering it, but you're also much more stable. So do it now, make sure that you've done everything to test it, and then, confirm it afterwards. Sergey?
Can you tell everyone what is CRO? What does
Conversion rate optimization. There are a whole branch on itself these days. So we have SEO, we have pay-per-click, and we have CRO. And CRO are the people who are trying very hard to optimize existing pages to make the user experience flow better. So change the button, change the position, make a page different. And they can be very valuable. However, they do come with a performance price, those tests. And that's where CRO sometimes doesn't want to acknowledge that. But those tests can be very valuable, but make sure you run them and end them. And know the price that you pay for it. Because, well, like I said, everyone in a company, every third party, they want more conversions, but always know what the price is that you pay for it as well, and have a discussion about it.
Can we summarize that as there is time for experimentation, and then there is time for running the code?
Yeah.
And the peak season for sales is not the time for experimentation.
No, that's actually perfect. Yeah, we can say that. Yeah. Any more questions?
On one of your previous slides, you talked about Lighthouse score and how it's not representative of INP.
Yeah.
Do you think Lighthouse should be expanded to include it, or should we retire it outright?
Yeah, so Lighthouse cannot measure interactivity. Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's repeat it. So can Lighthouse actually try to measure INP? Well, it can't, because it can't measure. It can't anticipate what you will do. So, however, that performance, that new performance panel here,
It's
that's
trying. Yeah.
is trying. So what you can do is you run it, and you click on all the elements, and it will report its delay. And the interesting is that your device might be quicker, but it will show the field data as well. So it's trying to help you, but it will still be limited to what you are trying to do, and you cannot completely be certain that everyone will do that. So a Lighthouse run, just a normal Lighthouse run, can't do interactivity, can only do blocking time. A performance test in the performance panel on Chrome might get you a lot further. But if you want to know for sure, you need a RUM. That's basically the line of debugging INP. but it probably won't be added to Lighthouse. Actually, I think Performance Panel is very much what we're moving forward to instead of Lighthouse. And I sort of hope that the Lighthouse score gets kicked out one of these days, but that's another discussion.
Actually, Google announced that they will be removing Lighthouse from the browser. It will be independently, it will work, and PageSpeed Insights on their service will still exist, but browser will not contain Lighthouse.
No, we're moving forward to this. Yeah, this is the future.
I do not know about SEO specifically.
No, it will stay. There will still be, well, it hasn't been decided, but it will probably stay around on PageSpeed Insights. So but it will be removed from the Chrome DevTools.
And you will be able to run your own version of Lighthouse as a command line or as a tool.
Yeah, so it won't be removed completely, but it is changing.
All right. You had a question as well, or?
Yeah, I did. So you had one interesting graph before where you correlated the I guess the distribution of Core Web Vitals scores with memory. And
yeah, this one.
Yeah, that one exactly. And I was curious. So like memory tends to scale with there tends to be like more memory on higher end devices, and higher end devices tend to have CPUs that have better single-threaded performance, and single-threaded performance tends to be the limiting factor of these metrics. So I'm curious if like you have any data that would show like on the same device if you scaled memory, if you see the same scaling.
Well, I should add over here that this data is being kept by browsers to prevent tools like us to do fingerprinting, for example, or identify specific users. So that's why we only get limited data like this. And we don't get any more nuanced data than 1, 2, 4, or 8 gigabytes.
It's actually something that we have been pushing on, and I know that the WebKit, right, it reports this. But that to actually add 1 tier above 8, because more and more devices are running above 8, they go to 10 or 12 even, and we're just capped at 8. And that would be interesting. What's the difference between even more device memory and 8?
But I'd be curious to see like if you were to take like the same device and like on my phone, if I were to run all these tests with like limit the browser to only being able to use 1 gigabyte and then 2 gigabytes and 4 and 8.
Yeah.
And like given the same CPU, is the same distribution happening? Because like the devices with 8 gigabytes have a way faster CPU than the ones with 1 gigabyte.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question, this specific question?
I cannot.
No,
I'll just come closer to you, okay?
Sure. That's fine.
So, yeah, what was the question?
So the question is, devices with more memory tend to have faster CPUs.
Yeah.
And so I was curious if there was any data where basically the same test was done, but instead of distributing these tests across different devices for different memory amounts, if there was any data where, like, on the same device, you tested it with different memory amounts. So basically you're isolating to the same CPU.
Yeah.
And
but then per amount of processors, or am I misunderstanding the question?
Well, this is, I mean, the limiting factor. This is mostly running on a single thread anyway.
Yeah.
So basically, like, eliminating the potential variability of like the higher end of a device having a faster CPU. Like basically saying like, given a fixed CPU, does varying the memory amount improve the metrics? That would be really interested to see that.
Yeah.
Because generally, it's the only metrics I've really seen is like a faster CPU makes these faster.
Yeah.
And like this shows more memory makes it faster, but
Yeah.
there's also that correlation. So I don't really know what the real.
I
thing
have
is.
to admit that I'm not sure how to answer the question either. So
Yeah, I don't.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting graph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is already showing a very strong correlation. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is just millions of page views. So the question would, you're kind of talking about a constraint test. So
Yeah, it's
I
hard.
say, try to run it. We'd be happy to help you.
Yeah.
This is actually an article for that advent that we
calendar,
talked
yeah.
about
Nice.
from the Perf Planet. So
Nice.
you could read it there, but also we could run this and we could write an article.
Sweet.
And then, yeah.
So the corollary is that why is the 2 gigabyte thing? It doesn't seem to scale.
No, and that's basically because there luckily were way less people on low-end devices compared to the other groups. So that's why the correlation doesn't really hold up over here, but we can clearly see a correlation going from 2 to 4 to 8 gigabytes. But yeah, that's really because of the way more limited amount
It's
of
a
data.
long tail of the old
Yeah.
devices.
And generally, data is hard.
Yeah.
Data is hard.
True. Yeah, it's keeping a lot of people from the streets to explain data.
Yeah. Any more questions?
All right.
Thank you very much.